lot of traffic. So looking at that right there, the bid package I put together, I'm guesstimating that's going to be somewhere around $32,000. Now, if you took out that one bid item for the signs, there's probably, the rest of that would be probably around $2,000.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the difference. I did want to point that out. I didn't know if you wanted to maybe defer some of this to the next budget cycle, or if there are some of the areas where you feel that there's a lot of traffic, a lot of people cross. So, I mean, the striping helps protecting the individual. The signage is further help for that. So I wanted to give that to everybody just to kind of get your feel if there was some we should do now, some we should defer, or if the board doesn't want to do it at all.
My first comment is, if you're going to send us stuff like this, can we get this in advance so we can actually understand what it is, as opposed to sit here and make decisions on a piece of paper?
Well, I was out here last Friday and I finished it this morning.
Okay.
Got it.
So,
Okay, all right,
Okay.
that will do that,
but I will send you the colored version because it's a little easier to see.
Okay.
I have a dumb question. Are the crosswalk signs, are those as much for drivers as they are for pedestrians, or more for drivers?
More for drivers.
Thank you. Okay, I thought so, but you know.
So we'll be
More for
revisiting this
drivers to
anyway.
protect your residents.
Absolutely.
We'll be revisiting this anyway next time when you have the bids, right?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to move forward with the bid as is, or if you wanted to say, well, gosh, that's $33,000. I don't know if you got that money in the bid or in the budget. So
We put in a little over 10,000 a year for signage.
Right.
And
Not probably for the crosswalk signs.
Okay.
yeah, because like I said, when you take that out,
I mean, I think if it's striped appropriately,
Yeah.
I don't know that we need crosswalk finials and signs. I mean,
well, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's the other area, that is inclusive of the decorative, the posts. There are some posts, I don't like those U-channel, the little square with the holes. That just looks, yes. So they do make round posts that look very nice without the bells and the whistles, and that would probably cut that price almost in half.
we need to see samples or pictures of what we're doing here. So that, I mean, some of these areas, I mean, are there stop signs and, just saying you want to add a crosswalk sign, is there a stop sign on a lot of these streets? Like
Well,
on Cipriani?
Wherever I have a stop sign, to me, that takes the place of the crosswalk sign. So I don't double up
Okay.
the crosswalk in.
Should we put this under that sign?
yeah,
Yes.
let's do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll just throw it on.
But do you want him, I think the question is, do you want him to get the bids?
I don't.
As is. Now, let just kind of one of them that I really think you should consider is right here in the parking lot, wait we've striped that.
Yes.
To me, that one, I feel there's a lot of traffic and a lot of distractions. So if I added those signs there, and there may be a few that are on streets that are very busy that you may want to consider. So, but again, I mean, I could hold off, but some of these signs, we've got missing some from the hurricanes or whatnot. So we're just, cleaning up all that.
So would it be possible to go ahead and get the quotes, the bids? And then we can always say, we don't want 46, we want
Right,
15.
right.
And then the bid will still stand, it will just be a lesser amount, right?
Correct.
So I would go ahead and get the bid so we have all the information we need to discuss this at the next meeting.
Okay.
Right.
So then when I send the bid out, I will qualify to the vendor that, we may not do all of the crosswalks sign, just so they know that.
And you're gonna do the less decorative or the more decorative?
I think they should match what we got out there already.
So that'll be what you're looking at.
Okay.
But again, I mean, I could, if you, in another community, because your sign posts are more bronzy color, and another community, they're black, and we've used just a round black through the posts. I don't think anybody noticed that we used just a round black
So you're
post.
talking about signs at every crosswalk? More signs, like
Well,
46 more signs.
the ones that I have on,
Yeah.
on that map.
That's what I'm
We
saying.
have a lot of
At
signs already.
the- At the next meeting, we could go through and say, we need this 6, right, for
I agree with
crosswalks,
you.
but we don't need, we're trying to get the quote, so we're not delaying.
Yeah, because there are a couple
So
of,
what he's saying is without that, it's a couple of $1,000s, which Joe can approve. Doesn't even have to come back to this board.
but I
But the
still would
others
like
are
to see
street
it.
signs, they're,
So he's saying approve the street
Right.
signs,
okay,
get the bid, just
Good
get it done.
Yeah.
And then still get the quote for the 46, so we know what we're talking about.
Right.
makes
Yes.
sense.
Good idea.
I wasn't saying that.
Oh, what were you saying? He was not saying that. My
Oh.
interpretation was incorrect.
I was saying, skip the 46 completely, get the street signs we need. Joe can approve them. It doesn't have to come back to this board. And
Then we just
I don't think we
talk
need to spend $30,000 for more signs in this community.
Okay, so my interpretation was half correct.
Yes.
about-
You get half credit.
So, but I still think, I would like to see a quote on the signs, because I think there are some areas where we need
Yes.
crosswalk signs where people don't pay attention.
Well,
Not 46, probably a handful.
So nobody pays attention to any of the signs right now.
Right, that's true.
There is no safety enforcement, and this is where I'm struggling with it. So if people aren't going to obey what we currently have, why would we spend the money for more signs? That's my nickel.
You cynic, you.
I know, I'm a cynic about it, but I agree that, I'm not opposed to getting the quote to understand what the cost is, but, yeah, that's just,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm looking at, like, I live on Portofino and I walk my dogs every day on Portofino, and it's got 2, 4, 6, there's like 16 signs on Portofino alone. And I'm telling you, I walk my dogs every day. I barely even see a car. So
Yeah,
you don't need,
and I have the exact opposite.
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
in Montana.
yeah, you've
Yes,
got tons of
yes,
traffic. I'm down at the
absolutely.
far end, you know,
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
almost at the end of a cul-de-sac, so there's no through traffic. There's 15 cars that come down here. I don't need to spend, 16
Right.
signs for
I
15
agree
houses.
with you totally, which is why I said just a
Yeah.
handful.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking out here.
I'm thinking here too,
Yeah.
yes.
So then we're gonna bifurcate this to Ken's
Yeah.
point, we can just.
So
take care of
if
it, yeah.
I
Getting
maybe,
some things done.
so I'll show these two, and that way we'll establish a
Right. Yes.
unit.
Right.
And then if we want to add.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and then also while I was out there, when I look at everything. There's several things that Keith and his staff can take care of. For instance, like the guardrail, the posts, some of them that the moisture gets in, would eat it out. But his staff is kind of filled in, and so there's certain things that staff can do, so I just get with Keith with those.
Okay.
Then the last thing I had, I sent you all
Oh, yes.
Yes.
these, and I didn't know if there was any
Yeah.
questions you had. It's the same, but I'd be a little bit bigger.
Okay.
I've got that, yeah.
Three,
Yeah.
and to show what their proposed striping was going to be.
Right.
And the way that affects us is right now, our exit, the sign, you can see there's a sign there that shows a right turn, a left turn. So if they're going to implement that, they should really update our sign that's on our property that also shows the right lane, combination straight, right.
Yeah. And to confirm, because I don't think it was what went to the other supervisors, we don't have room for a third lane, so,
We do not.
right, so it would be right and straight on the outfall and then left.
Ooh, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah,
So left will be a dedicated,
yes,
okay,
so everything's gonna come to a halt.
Correct.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
And that other one that I sent to use to highlight the skip lines, that they're gonna paint those skip lines to show how you're supposed to follow.
okay.
Sure. So, any more questions on that?
And do they have to pay for our restriping or we do?
They do.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, good.
That they do, yeah. And I would need to find out who their person is. I'll get them to replace the sign that's on our property to match what they're doing. And again, the striping, that'll be part of that. I think I've got 2 arrows that we would need to add that straight through.
Yeah.
To that too. So it'd be modifying those 2 painted arrows and then changing out that sign.
Why was the decision made to make the right-hand turn lane a through lane as well?
I don't know, do you know?
That was on their plans, but that kind of makes the most sense.
It does until somebody's wanting to make a right-hand turn and you're 5 deep with
I
people
know.
trying to cross.
I know.
But the problem is then people want to go to the shopping center, can't get there versus going down and making a U-turn somewhere and coming back around.
Right, but the left lane could be the through lane. Is my thought. Why is the left lane not the through lane?
Yeah, that was the design that their engineer put together.
Because it makes more sense.
Oh, is that what it is?
It seriously does. I mean, you have to, it's the same traffic pattern to go left or to go straight.
Straight, exactly,
Right? So.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
true, you're right.
So is there any way we can renegotiate that striping? Because right-hand turns are generally speaking easy. And now what we did is we added that complexity of the through lane. Is there any way that can be renegotiated?
It looks to me that it better aligns with the left turn
To go through?
to go straight through.
So is that something that you talked about with the conversation?
I
Or
would
is
think
it
that,
separate?
I
Or
would
is
think
that-
that would be part of it. I
Yeah.
think, well, Swandy doesn't know about that yet, so we were gonna ask you, maybe it's, now's the time to ask you whether. We had a, former city council member, gentleman who lives in here, who offered to go with someone from the CDD and potentially for someone from the POA to talk to the county about making the intersection, the safest it can be. And obviously, he's got connections because he was on council with someone who's currently on Sarasota County. He's our commissioner for this district. So, the question that came up during the workshop is, is there anything that prohibits us to go in with someone like this former council member and someone from the POA to talk to the county about,
As long as it's only one board member.
as long as it's only one board
Yeah.
member from the CDD, yeah, okay,
No, there's nothing that prohibits
Okay.
you from trying and
So that
improve
would be part of
safety
it.
at that intersection.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
okay, perfect.
And in regards to the discussion we're having, I think it depends how final this all is, so. And I think you'll learn that if you go and have this discussion.
It won't be me.
Remember this.
Okay,
But again, I think what you're asking is absolutely
does make sense.
doable,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay, great. Put that on your list.
Did you have anything else? Linda, I'll be that person.
And I'd just like to make an editorial. The safety that's being applied outside this community, I would like to see applied inside this community. If we're gonna start spending calories on that exit, and I understand completely why, I think we need to also spend the calories inside this community from a safety perspective and traffic flow as well.
Yeah.
That's just my
Okay.
statement.
Works for me.
Do what? I didn't follow.
the people in this community use stop signs as optional. They completely ignore the speed limit. The speed limit's a law, there's
Some
stop
do.
signs that are law. Some do,
Right.
majority do. I'm not gonna get into specifics about it, but if we're gonna throw energy into creating a safe environment at that intersection, I think we need to do the same and put energy inside this community for safety to our residents inside this community.
That'll be a discussion, once the new gate access system is there. There's a traffic clock type product that's adaptable for use with that system,
Mhm.
if we choose to go that way.
That's fine, but it needs to be enforced, and I know that's not our area.
We don't have that power.
Yeah, I understand that.
No,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying,
Right.
that's a discussion we can have
yes,
down the road.
yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay,
One other thing you kind of touched on, this sidewalk along Laurel is in the right of way, so it's not our responsibility.
that explains it. Okay.
Okay.
Mark, I've got a question. We talked about the parking lot repair. It looks like parking lot services is the least expensive, yet they're the most expensive for striping. Can you, for the next meeting, can you come back with us to have them take out the parking lot striping price and then get us a separate vendor to do striping? Because it looks like we could probably save $8,000 or more if we do it that way. Not that I want to break it up, but to save $8,000 just for the sake of striping, I think that's a reasonable.
I'm not sure parking lot does striping in-house, so I'm thinking they're gonna have to reach out to somebody anyway, so that would be easy.
Yeah, because that's, because they're 17,000 when everybody else is in the eights. So let's take the 17 out of their bid and get somebody for the eights, or maybe if we do it directly, might even be less. I don't know, but at least something we should look at. I mean, $8,000 is a significant savings if we could do that.
And doing another community is similar kind of the thing, and it's really a two-step process. Once you do paving, you're supposed to wait 30 days before you put down thermo. Thermo is gonna last a long time. Paint striping can be done right away. So there's probably a combination, paint striping, and then follow up in a month to do the thermo.
How long does paint stripe, how long does paint last versus thermo?
You get the traffic paint in a parking lot, you probably get a year at the most.
Oh, wow, that's it? Okay,
A year that'll be effective.
okay, that's not good, okay. I thought it'd be a lot longer than that.
Your
No, I think you're
parking
right.
lot does fill up pretty often,
Okay,
so there's a lot of use to this one. So, yeah, I mean, it'll start to fade pretty bad in about the year. I think they tell you it's like 6 months, but it lasts longer.
so you have to wait 30 days before you thermo it, so somebody's gotta come put paint down for a temporary basis and then come thermo it? Is that
I
the plan?
wouldn't think you would want that, because if you just leave it bare for
We
a
can,
month, it'll be.
Oh, no.
that'll be-
That's right.
Even in the summer where it doesn't fill up that much, that'd be dangerous, and especially also with the handicap parking, we need to make sure that gets identified. So if you can get us a price for painting and then come back and thermo striping, and then make sure that parking lot services will take that out of their bid entirely, I think that parking lot's in need of getting repaired.
We'll do.
Thank you.
And that's all I had.
Great, thanks for.
Thanks, really
Thanks,
helpful,
Ray.
thank you.
Andy, did you have anything to report?
Yes, I have a few items for the board. The first one, which is on the, listed on the agenda here, is the update on the master indenture review. So I've done my review. I'm waiting to hear back further from bond counsel though. Let me just give you a little bit more information on that. So Rosetta actually had 3 communities that I'm involved with where I was asked to take a look at indentures. One of them was very straightforward, that the money came back to the district. The other was very straightforward, that it did not, that the funds needed to go to redeem bonds. Yours, being Venetian, was a little more complicated. Rosetta had looked at the master indenture, and that was pretty clear as to how the funds would flow, and that potentially they could come back to your general fund. But when I looked further at our supplemental indenture, which was issued when we did the refinancing with the note, it's not as clear to me whether the funds could be transferred to the general fund or would need to go to redeeming bonds. So I reached out to your bond counsel, who was Warren Bloom at Greenberg Traurig, and I've been corresponding with him, and he's going to take a look at it and give me his opinion as well. So I do not have a final answer for you yet. I recognize from both sides, it's a significant amount of money, so we need to make sure that that we have the support for whatever decision we make.
What's the source of the money? Is it interest that was
It's-
collected?
I asked the same question of Rosetta, and it's, for Venetian, it's made up of a few things. Evidently, when they did the refi, there was a significant amount of money that ended up as excess in the revenue fund, just the way all the numbers, parsed out. That was the beginning of it, Jill. And then it was interest earnings and late.
On that excess.
On that access and other
The whole shoot.
more interest than, we anticipated. As we know, we've had a pretty good interest earning environment.
Right.
And late tax payments. So anytime someone pays, we expect everybody's gonna pay early. And when they don't, we end up with a little bit of extra
Yes.
money.
Right,
All of that has added up to where we find ourselves now.
okay.
So I don't have an answer for you yet, but I have done my deep dive, and I'm waiting to hear back from your bond counsel on it.
I see.
So I'll, and we don't need to wait till the next meeting. I mean, if I get a response this afternoon, I'll email the board and let you know what I find out.
Okay. And he'll tell us if there's any, there wouldn't be a restriction on how we could use it. It would just go in the general, it would have to go into the general.
Well,
fund.
it will either flow to the general fund,
Right.
and then it'll be yours to use as you would any other
Okay.
CDD funds that you can't throw a birthday
So there
party.
would be no but it would be no restriction on it. It could.
Or
Right.
it may not be able to flow to the general fund, in which case it would be used to redeem bonds. You're still getting a benefit, the
Right,
money's
sure.
not gone,
Uh-huh.
but it's just how you can use it.
Okay.
So that's where we stand on that issue.
Okay.
Update on the FEMA appeal. Everything was timely filed by the January 5th deadline. So now we hurry up and wait,
Thank you.
and we'll see what they have to say. I think we mentioned to you that we filed a similar appeal, working with another district Belinda and I have at Great Hawk Landing. Got some favorable comments so far. Nothing has been decided yet, so we'll see where that goes. Another item I wanted to bring up is every time around this time of year, we talk about doing a sunshine presentation, not only for any board members that would like to participate, but also all of your new committee members. That's something that I do for the district at no charge. But I wanted to discuss with you if we want to try and get that on the books.
I think it's a good
Yeah,
idea.
sure.
So when works for you? I usually do them, historically, I've done it right before a CDD meeting. I know you're having a lot of workshops lately in that time frame.
Maybe do it after, because obviously 8:30 in the morning, it can't come before 8:30, but after meeting,
Why not before the next meeting?
Yeah,
Why don't we
Instead of
just,
a workshop.
right,
yeah, I think so.
kill the workshop?
Yeah.
kill the workshop, yeah.
So are you meeting either one is fine. I'm just asking, are you doing the second meeting in January? Are we keeping that? Is that the
Yes.
meeting we're
Yes.
talking about?
I
Okay.
think so, unless, we're keeping the 27th of January, right?
All right, so I will plan for the 27th at 8:30. We'll get that noticed. And usually, whether it's Keith or Amber, I know Rosetta's office helps me in doing e-blast to the committee members to let them know that we're doing it.
Yeah, I think we need to make sure it goes centrally, I think, each of us as liaisons, should push it as well, but I think, the more the merrier,
Sure.
in terms of letting people know, so that would be great.
Okay,
What time is it?
8:30, right?
Yes.
Okay. The only other item is, I know you're having ongoing discussions as you implement your access control. And I sent that chart that was a good idea that Rich had requested. I had a number of emails and conversations with Ken as he's sorting through how the process is gonna roll out. We did prepare an affidavit. I know the board's thoughts on that we wanna use that sparingly. So, we've done a fair amount of work on that. I don't really have anything to report other than that we're helping with the project, but I'm glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Not on that one, I had a couple others.
Yeah, I've got a few things.
Sure, of course.
Did you want to ask about the access project first, though?
No, go ahead.
Okay, just two super quick things. We were talking this morning at the workshop about, the pickleball, doing some pickleball sound work, by contract. And it's below $5,000, so I can sign for it, but, do you need to review a contract? Is there something we should do in that regard?
Typically, it's up to the board, okay? And typically, we do contracts for most things, or unless it's, an established vendor. We've got a contract, I'll use LMP as an example, with LMP. And we have all their insurance and things along those lines. So when they send us a proposal to trim a tree, we just go with the proposal. But typically, I would recommend that we do contracts, or at least look at anything that's been proposed to you. For instance, with the sound person, ultimately it's your decision. And I get this question asked to me a lot, it's not always one size fits all. Someone will say, oh, well, it's only $1,000. Okay, but it's $1,000 to dynamite the sidewalk, okay? There's some potential liability there, whereas it might be a $5,000 contract to, vacuum the rug. So,
Right, they won't be on site.
I'm glad to look at it if you'd like. We may not need, a full-blown contract, especially if they're not gonna be on site, but there are certain things we need to make sure are in there. Because we are a public entity, we have to have E-Verify provisions, public records provisions. Believe it or not, we need to have an anti-human trafficking affidavit now from our vendors.
Okay.
So, there are certain requirements that you have, are we less concerned with what their automobile insurance is if they're never gonna be on site? Absolutely. Than if they're, coming out to, as I said, dynamite the road. But, so, there's really no one size fits all, but I do typically recommend that we at least put our eyes on.
The only other thing I had, is I was looking over the rules document with respect to, the access control stuff, because there's some words that probably are gonna have to be adjusted in there about how things get done. We're gonna be taking out the blurb in the rules about, we're no longer be taking credit cards, so we're gonna need to delete that. We need to amend some language, for pickleball, because the hours aren't quite right in the document. Do we need to have a public hearing?
It's gonna depend,
Language?
it's another depend answer this morning. But based on those two things that you just told me, like removing a provision or changing the pickleball hours, the answer is no.
Okay.
If we're going to get deeper, anytime you change a rate, okay, which you did not mention, that is a non-negotiable.
Right.
Statute says you have to go through the public hearing process. If we're going to delve deep into changing some definitions and things along those lines, then
I don't think so.
we would have to go through the rulemaking process as well. But changing the hours on when pickleball is available, or removing that provision, something like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it, cool, thanks.
Andy,
Yes,
if there's a cost reimbursement, I won't say fee, involved in something, let me give you the specifics, because as we go through this gate access RFID tag thing, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, all of the non-resident golf members who get an RFID tag, do we charge them for that tag?
Correct,
We do?
yes.
Okay, then I withdraw my question. Because if we weren't, I was gonna suggest that we should.
Okay,
Got a question?
sure.
I didn't get a chance to talk to kids because I just found this out. I had a meeting yesterday afternoon, regarding Swift Mud. This may have, you guys, I don't know who's responsible for it, but you might be the biggest place to start, is we're no longer listed as an additional permittee on Swift Mud. Was that a decision the board made or somebody made? Because Heritage took us off. So we're no longer a permittee, which means that we don't get information. So if Swift Mud is communicating with Heritage for not reporting, which they have not done for the last year and a half, they have not reported in. There's no information in Swift Mud going back from March 23 until now. We don't get the notices because we're not a permittee, an additional permittee. So I don't know how they took us off. They took us off.
I never heard anything until you just said it, yeah.
I don't know. I just joined the board
I'll defer to board members, but I don't ever remember anybody coming to us and requesting that or anything along those lines. So we'll follow up.
Okay, so I think, yeah.
I'm assuming you got that from Mr. Jasper.
Yeah, and we
I'll talk to
actually,
Jerry.
we went on the website and he looked, and he told me this information and he, he explained to me, so I was just trying to learn about the landscaping issues that we were having. And
Because we have, I'm sure you talked about it, we have a whole three-way agreement between us
Yes,
and
yeah,
and the golf course and
yeah,
everything,
it's
right?
I've got all that
And
here.
reading the meters and the different,
Yes.
yes.
So, I mean, they have, like I said, they have not reported since March of 2023 was the last time they reported.
I'll follow up. My law partner, David Jackson, used to be counsel at Swift Mud, and he helped negotiate that agreement, so I'll get with him.
So we need to find that out, and why Swift Mud has not said anything to anybody about not reporting for the last year and a half, is almost 2 years now. So yes, okay.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions for Andy?
Do you want a landscape question now?
I was gonna ask if whatever item we have for John, if we
Yeah.
could move it
Yeah,
up before the
that'd be
next
good. So
report.
let me ask my first question, and then we can move that up, which is, we have a retainer for you, Andy. We have a retainer agreement with Kimley Horn.
Yes,
We have not acted on their proposal yet, but we have not discontinued service either. I've just been holding. And so we, at the last board meeting, I was asked to check with Rosetta, John Tober, Fowler, about doing design work on Laurel Road in addition to or without Kimley Horn and possibly Juniper. Can we do that? There's no, I didn't see exclusivity in that.
you can
agreement.
absolutely do that.
Thank you.
The
I
way
wanted
the
to
agreement
make
is
sure before-
prepared is, yes, we retain them. It's like a work order type process. So if you said, hey, give us a design for that area right there, they give you a work order, you approve it or don't approve it. There's no exclusivity in terms of using another vendor. Although keep in mind that the whole reason we had to go through the whole process is because as a CDD, when you're retaining a landscape architect, you have to go through an RFQ process unless it's just a planning study of less than 35,000. Now, if you're using Rosetta, it's not an issue because they're already one of your established vendors. You just mentioned maybe going to another vendor, whether it's Juniper or whomever, depending upon the pricing, might trigger some competitive bidding requirements.
Okay, so even though Juniper is the holding company for LNP and.
Oh, right, I forgot that.
Yeah, I know,
Thank
I
you.
know.
Okay, no,
So-
then we would not have an issue there. It'd be
Okay,
like,
okay, either way. Okay.
yes.
That was the legal question. Okay, so now you want to go on to the landscape. I did not put this on the agenda, so I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about besides what we talked about.
Well, it's not really it's just a quick item. Just in relation to me hitting, Jerry Jasper for this information and having to ask Belinda for a lot of information and contracts, whatever. I just think it might be a good procedure going forward if all contracts and information and historicals could be set aside and put into some easy place so for current CDD members and or then future people can have access to this information so we can understand it, because once Jerry leaves his community, a lot of information is going to go with it. And and as we go off the board 6 years from now, the new board members are gonna be saying, what happened, what's going on, we don't know. I just think we should start having a library of information for all future, for the CDD and for all future people, so there's not this 3-year learning curve to figure out what's going on.
Starting with current contracts?
I would start with current and then try to go back, the swift one, just going back to,
Well, that should be a
That is a
current
current
contract.
yes, yeah.
That we know of,
One
yeah.
contract.
So just all those things should be in a place with understanding, and then if there's any historical information as other things that are not really contractual, but functional for what we need to do as a committee, I think that would be very beneficial for us, me,
So-
Cindy, and for future people who then join.
So we have OneDrive, which is SharePoint, right? Is there a section within SharePoint that you can just give us access to where that information is at?
We can send you links and create links, we can.
That's,
But it's,
yeah,
You can't just go out there and,
no, it would have to
You
be
can't search.
created
it has
by,
to be a link, yeah, because
Yeah.
I've tried to do
Right,
that.
because
Right.
we have OneDrive, we work with OneDrive, we also have Teams, but we can create a link,
Okay.
depending on what you want sent to you. Obviously, there's different links that can be created because, let's face it, it's thousands of documents.
sure, absolutely.
I think if things pop up, like I think the water agreement is.
Yeah.
So if you have a specific question regarding a specific agreement or you want a
Right.
copy of it, then I can have Amber send you a link.
But even like Jerry wrote that, this 2-page with this very long email explaining everything, so it's not even just the information, it's like all this historical stuff.
But we
which
also keep correspondence files as well by year, by fiscal year. So if there's a correspondence that's directed to the district, then obviously it would be kept there. If it's provided at a meeting, it's attached to the minutes. So it is a lot of information, but if you want something specific, we can create a link for it.
Maybe could you come back with, this is just an idea, come back with an idea of how many, if we're talking current contracts, every contract, that could be a lot more than current contracts that extend over a year or something. But like, that would, because if you do current contracts, we're gonna have the contract for the fence, the contract for water delivery, the contract for, and I
And it's
don't know
not
that
just
we
the
need all
current
that.
contract, you also have several addendums.
Right,
So if you have one contract,
Right.
if you have 3 addendums, it's not just the contract, it's the contract plus the addendums.
I think it's a great idea, I just think it would be good to know what we're talking about, because if you give us this much, we're not gonna be able to find anything anyway.
Exactly.
So,
Maybe the critical.
I think we could talk about that next time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm-
Okay, and then the other landscape item is, we talked about this in workshop. We have decided to move forward with the Kimley Horn proposal just for Laurel Road at this point, which is a $15,600 expense. So that is what the board would like to do, and also get a proposal from the Johns.
Communicated to the other John,
The
yes.
And then we had also, the board had asked me last time to entertain doing a proposal from Juniper as well. And so I guess I would like to redo this conversation and see what the board would like to do at this point. We didn't. I'm saying that's what, in the workshop, we talked about doing the Kimley Horn for $15,600 for just the Laurel Road. I know that John I had talked to them previously after the last board meeting, and I know their cost would be significantly less to do that. So it really is a question of where do we start, where do we end, how do we want to do this? And then Juniper, I have contact information, but we have not, I just got it, so I haven't had any conversations yet.
You know, a question I do have, I guess I should use it, this. Question I do have, is, Kimley Horn is also gonna look at some of the things that I think neither Juniper nor, John Fowler / Tober would do. I could be wrong about this, but things like taking into account, whether there's buried electrical stuff, that sort of thing. If we were to ask about doing a plan for Laurel Road, is what, for example, you would be able to do, John, is that inclusive of things like that or not?
I would have to ask Tobor. He actually has a degree in landscape architecture,
I see.
so that's his ball. I can make design for something easy out here, but when it comes to something
Right.
major like that, I defer to him, but I can ask that question.
Yeah, because I think part of it, at least in my mind, is the engineering aspect of it. Is that
And
a?
we don't have a bid yet, which is why I
Right.
can't answer that question either. But I think as an architect, I think they have the same guidelines that apply. Like you have to look for architectural because you can't dig around.
Right.
If you, I mean, you have to look for
Gas line or
electrical,
something.
gas lines, you can't dig
No,
around.
you have to call them big city.
Exactly,
And
But-
anybody would have to do that.
anybody.
It depends too, by law, there's supposed to be a certain depth anyway, so ideally, you're not gonna hit that anyway, but it's exactly what he said, that before you do any type of work, you have to call IDIG and then identify those areas as well, so.
Because it's not gonna change what you do, it'll change maybe how you do it.
I mean, the one thing I would say though is maybe on her, ideas, possibly maybe specific type of plants, and if you have aggressive roots, it might go down into those things, so. That's another aspect you could look at.
Yeah, I also think I'm not entirely sure as a board we've settled on what, other than plants, the man-made barrier would be, if any, along
Proposal for a wall last year too.
with the wall with
And
the
it
iron
was-
thing.
It was ridiculous, we can't afford
We're
it.
talking hurricane fencing.
But that's expensive too, because you have to rip out you have to rip everything out to put the hurricane
You have to
fence,
rip what's
and then
there.
start,
Right.
and then
To
start
put in
from
the
scratch,
fence.
so
You just
you're
double
doubling
the
or tripling
price
your landscape
of that.
costs.
I'm asking, are we clear?
Yeah.
As a board, what the man-made barrier is, and I'm not sure we are.
I thought we had agreed, and I could be wrong, that we were gonna stick with the city of Venice fence that exists along the perimeter, along and we were not gonna do any other hurricane fencing, hurricane fencing. But we were gonna replace what was there because
Right,
actually we don't have a quote for that and we double the price because we have to take everything else that's there.
right. I don't recall that
Previously,
we,
we had,
have we said, did we settle?
not this board,
Right,
I think on the last
but
quote
we
we had.
did, and that there would be no man-made barrier west of the entrance.
Besides what's already there, west, sorry. No, we had decided that we weren't gonna do
we
anything
didn't talk
west.
about west.
I thought we
No,
said we were just gonna do plantings,
No, we didn't settle on
We
it.
kind of did, but we didn't make a final decision.
because we had a proposal for a fence.
I had a proposal for a fence, for a wall, and then a hybrid that was sort of decorative with pillars and then metal, but,
Actually, we didn't have a bid for that, but we.
no, we had like a numberish
An
kind of
idea.
thing, but,
Yeah,
so I think that's part of what we do have to settle before we,
go ahead, you were gonna say something, I heard breath.
I thought we were talking about the Medici Burn project, which is Laurel, that in the
Olive Laurel,
Laurel.
oh, the whole, no, olive Laurel, even on the Kinley Horn, it's
Okay.
olive Laurel, even the west side.
So we're talking from Myaka Park
Yeah, if you look at the drawing that Kinley Horn did, you can
all the
see,
way to the pillar are we only
No.
going to the golf course?
no, all past Veneto
Uh-huh.
to the end of, you can see it, it's like
Where
where the
the
tee
where the
boxes
boxes
are.
Oh, where the
See
tee
where the
boxes
tee
are.
box-
Settlements that okay, okay.
So I have a possible recommendation that we get the landscape plan started. We can use that and then say that's not enough depth or it's not enough of a barrier. And now we want to look west and say, let's look at a fence. But I think we should get started with the landscape plan so that in the entirety, it looks similar and we can always start on the east side and then look at a fence for the west side.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to get something started with these plans rather than wait and try and get a fence
Don't
quote. That's gonna
disagree.
take a while.
I,
because I
I'm
pulled the one from last
Hey,
year, I happen to
John,
have it.
this is-
100% in
this
agreement with
is-
that, Cheryl. I mean, that's
That's what they,
the
It's
priority.
provided.
That
Well,
is the
it's-
A1 priority.
It's what Kinley
It's
Horn
an
does
exa-
as
no,
an
it's an
example.
example, John.
So they,
Yeah, I got
so
you.
it's just,
The fence,
I mean, it was 6 foot, I mean,
It's not gonna stop anybody.
it'll slow down a few people, but it'll slow down a motorcycle possibly until somebody decides to cut it. But it's really not gonna stop. a
Even
kid
the
from
fence
walking
on
in.
this side, it's a hurricane fence, it's a little bit of a deterrent, but it's really the plantings that deter people from trying to get through them.
Yeah, lots of thorny stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, 'cause I've got the fence proposals here from last year.
Yeah, because I remember those proposals, sitting out.
It was, yeah, the chain link was like 52,000 and the other stuff was about double that.
Yeah,
Or
but
more
that's-
of it was double that.
Unfortunately, that was just the fence, it wasn't the
Yeah, the walls were $600,000, so.
disrepair that is
yeah.
caused by putting.
Ripping out all the landscaping and stuff.
I would say that bid probably,
25
way
to
north.
30%, yeah,
Yeah, way
I'm sure
north.
you're right. I'm sure you're right, so,
So how would you like to proceed?
I would like to, I still haven't heard, that, do you want to go forward? My question to the board is, I will make a motion, but I need to know, or I can make a motion and we can discuss. Would you prefer that? You can reword that any way you want. To do, a design also for Laurel Road. And both of these would be east and west of the.
Do we have a cost estimate from John to do that? We have
Not
Kennedy
yet.
Horn.
We do not. We know, would you like to say what you said to me?
Well, I talked to him right before I came in, and he said he has to come out and get eyes on it. He didn't even want to give me any type of ballpark number. So what I would suggest is I can let him know, and possibly at the next meeting, he can give a proposal on what that cost would be from our end.
I mean, I'm all for getting another proposal, but I'm just concerned about have Kimley Horn and them do, because we were worried about $15,000 before. Now we're gonna 50% to double it. So,
We need a second, because we're having discussion.
I'm sorry.
All right, I
Actually make it this.
I said, engage Kimley Horn for Laurel Road and engage Rosetta Johns for another bid on, because they're the most familiar with this property and have worked on that road so often. So to get another bid from them on what to do with Laurel Road. So basically get a bid from them and engage Kimley Horn
Why would we do that?
to get two different viewpoints on what to do.
Well, if we're engaging Kennedy Horn, we're committing.
They're not exclusive though, but we're committing $15,000.
up to, it's not to exceed.
I bet you it'll be every bit of $15,000.
But we don't have a comparison from John to compare to the 15.6.
So I said get a bid from them. So
But why would we vote to engage somebody and get another bid?
what would you like to do then? We're in the discussion part. Are we in the discussion part?
You are.
Yes.
Well, I would table it to the next meeting, get another bid from John, now you have two bids to compare. We want multiple bids, don't we?
That's fine, but I will tell you that, well, go ahead.
No,
I just have a feeling that even if Rosetta bids on this, this board will want to move forward with Kimley Horn to see how they do on the Laurel Road project.
well, then there's no point in getting a bid from John,
I'm
if that's the case.
not for, I like John. I think John does a great job.
You don't have to like
I'd be more than happy, I'd be more
You
than
like to
happy
get multiple bids.
I'd be more
that's
than
why I
happy
was-
to have them bid it, and if they can provide us something similar to Kimley Horn, and it's less expensive than another property, I would go with them. I'm not here
I would
pushing
like to
Kimley
have
Horn.
them bid it too because we don't have any other bids beside Kimley Horn.
Correct.
They're the only ones who
Correct.
filled
Then-
on it.
So we're saying the
then-
same thing.
Then let's,
So you should withdraw your
So I'm
vote.
withdrawing them.
then let's wait till next month, get their bid in.
Can we get a bid in 2 weeks?
I will ask. It's not me.
So-
If it were me, I could do it for me, but I don't know about. the person.
Here's my take on this is, this is a priority. If, and I hate to say something like this, but if you can, great if you can get the bid in 2 weeks for the next meeting. If you can't get the bid in 2 weeks, then I say we go with Kimley Horn.
Let's discuss that in 2 weeks.
And we can discuss it in 2
We
weeks.
just table it for now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's all been on the agenda for your.
yes,
Do you,
yes.
since that last meeting, the board had asked me to reach out to Juniper, do you also want to get a competing bid from Juniper?
If they can get it to us in 2 weeks.
Why not?
I just want to make sure we get the right thing.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sure.
Is there anything else for John?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
Appreciate everything.
Julie, do you have anything to report?
Hi, good morning. So just to update on Bernard, he is still in the hospital, but he's on the road to recovery. And if anyone has any questions about that. I also did want to ask the board as well, if you have any information or you need any support with anything, can you please definitely reach out to me? Because the team is spread thin because it's season. So I think in order for us to accomplish what you're asking, I need to be in it because we've not done a couple of things and then I find out about it. And now I'm absolutely, getting the rest of my team, which is Steven Valley. He's my regional general manager and he supports me. He was here last Monday doing some pickleball stuff for me. So I do want you to know, it is really important because I need to keep the team on track. And it's hard, if I don't know what they need support with. And sometimes they forget to mention it to me. Oh, that thing just fell. Okay, great. So I know the engineer's gone, but I was gonna ask the board for some support in the facilities committee meeting, the pavers for the pickleball. It's really out of, we'll help and I'll do whatever I can do, but we don't have the scope for the team to do what needs to possibly be done with the pavers. So I don't know if the engineer, if that's still part of, that was the original thing with the pickleball thing. So, could he maybe help explain to us how to help do that? But I need the board to help support me on that. Okay?
Just call
Pardon?
him, just call him.
Okay. All right, sorry, I didn't know it was that simple. Okay, so, last week, the week before now the whole thing fell down. Sorry, I hope it didn't hit you. Last Monday, there was a pickleball meeting. On Friday, we had met with, one of the members, and then at the meeting on Monday, we got a list of things that we've been addressing. So I do want you to know we're moving forward on that, and they know how to contact us directly to make sure. The fence was fixed on Friday, so you can go see the fence. Sam is testing the cord for safety because of the surface. There's like a corner that might be questionable, but he is testing it today. If he deems that it's playable and safe, then we're able to open that cord. But if he doesn't, we'll make sure we address it straight away. I did just text him because it did come up about there are some samples of quieter pickleballs out there. So I asked him if he could get some so we could actually test it. And maybe, one of you guys, we could ask you if you could be over at your house and Sam could test it with someone. So I do want you to know we're looking at that. La Sala is being repainted as we speak. So they set up everything yesterday and it'll be done by tomorrow, close of business. And all the fresh paint, so then you're welcome to come and see it there. It was brought to my attention that the second floor storage should no longer be in use due to the safety issues. I'm taking the steps needed for non-access to that area. So immediately, as of tomorrow, we are moving the stuff out of that, and the only people that will go in that area are vendors to perform any kind of tasks. I'll make sure it's on their COI. They have to bring the appropriate ladder and mechanism to get up there, but we'll make sure about that. Okay, and I'm just telling you, so with that said, as I reach out to the insurance adjuster, he had told me before that they're done looking at the lift, but I'll double check and I'll get it in writing, but then we'll try and sell the lift for scrap or for parts. I'm not sure if that's gonna be possible or if we have to pay someone to remove it, but we'll figure it out. And I'll let you know. We'll do it. I'm just letting you know what's happening. Okay,
Hold on.
so we got a new pool.
Julie.
Oh, sorry.
Just one moment.
Yes, sir.
You may not be there yet, but when you do reach a point that you decide that you're able to dispose of the lift, check with me first,
Yes,
because we might have to declare it surplus.
Okay, and I'll keep you on like the emails and stuff, but they had told me that a long time ago. Yes,
Sorry
sir.
to interrupt.
Okay. So we did get a new pool vendor. The pool vendor we had went out of business. In January, it's given us an end straight away, and some are perhaps spoke to one of our pool specialists just to confirm if there's any questions on that. He's gonna come down and look at it as well, so we kind of have another idea and opinion from someone else. Okay, with the events, we are still trying to have a variety of events. We did get some recommendations from the social committee, and we're trying to go through those recommendations and kind of streamline some things, so you'll see that as we go. Okay, yeah, okay, so I just got a text from the pizza oven people, and I need to set up the date with them, so that's exciting. Please be aware, like, we need to do this right, we have to get it installed, we have to test it. It's not like install, we have pizza the next day, so I just wanna inform them, we're gonna make sure we do it the right way. And many people have said you only have one chance, so I hope we have more than one chance, but,
Right, yeah.
yeah, so great. I think that's it on my part. Ricardo's gonna give a financial report, but
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Did you look into that?
yes, sir. Yes, and Ricardo's also getting a mention about the new website, which is the new reservation thing. I mean, so some of the stuff is intertangled in there, but yes, and did you find out?
It is on the website, it's already been added.
But can you get it to the web, can you get it to the existing, because it might be a while before the new website gets up, and I don't know, what's the update for the new website?
So that's one of the updates, but we talked about February 1st.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth the time to make any manpower
If
investment
it's-
in Club Essentials right now.
if
Because I've got
yeah.
the same problem with, and this was brought up in the racket and
Right, yeah.
in fitness and
In
pool.
fitness.
I've got the same problem with the fitness classes, the lap lane
You have all
classes.
the fun.
Okay.
I have all the fun,
Yeah,
yeah. And then, of course, the tennis reservation. So that's being addressed in,
February first,
Yep.
it doesn't make any sense. I mean,
Yeah.
it's for a few weeks.
yeah,
No.
it's not worth it.
Yeah, so we're
Not worth
we're
the
right on
manpower.
it, and just FYI on that for dining, the TBD, it won't be a thing with the new website, so that will
good.
not be a question. That's our understanding, we will absolutely check on that as well, okay? So I'm gonna turn it over to Ricardo. I'm gonna hand it on.
Thank you.
November financials in 2024. First of all, we have the overall numbers of the overall revenue. We had a slight positive number also over last year. Also, the expenses were a little lower than the budget amount, a little over last year, but we still had a positive net profit for the overall. Date, we're looking at just slightly under budget on the actual revenue and lower on the overall expenses also. This also, I don't mention October financials that was looking a little lower. So most of these expenses also are catching up for that October financials. Looking at the food and beverage, the overall revenue, a lot better, doing a lot better job month to month. Overall revenue was over budget by $20,000 and about $40,000 for compared to last year. Then the expenses were under about $4,000 and a little over last year, but we're trying to control expenses and as we try to increase that revenue. Next page. And it's the same picture when you're looking at the year-to-date on the actuals and budget amounts for the revenue and expenses. On the cost of goods, we're looking at a cost of goods, the actual for food for the month of November of 52.6%. That compared to a budget amount of 63, so we're under budget, but still not on the place of want to be. still under budget also compared to last year. So say for the year to date, looking at 45, so looking a lot better on the cost of goods compared to the budget amount and also the last year. And we're getting closer to that goal. Now we have other issues coming up. And the same on the beverage side. Then the labor costs, which is the issue that will arise after the cost of goods. So on November, it was slightly over, it was 53% of revenue, the labor. So the labor cost still way higher than we're looking at 68% of revenue. Compared to budget, it's slightly different. So 65%.
So it's really 100% with benefits.
When you put the benefits, yeah.
Or close to it.
So it's maybe about 80. So it's 100%.
Ricardo, can I ask you the on the labor, just before you move on, is it accelerating in terms of the labor being ahead of budget, or is it a blip because of the holidays? Do we have a sense of that? It's a blip from the holidays?
So we think it's a blip from the holidays, but since we haven't got out of them yet,
That's true.
that we kind of we're not able to feel that trend. But one of the things that Bernard was doing now is it was going to cut out the labor and look at it a little more closely so we can control whatever we can control.
And just to interject, and cost the schedules. So you can do a forecast of what the schedule will cost and then after the fact as well. That's why we have to be really careful on what we add on from a service perspective. You know, the days before Thanksgiving, the days before Christmas, the days before New Year's Eve. Because what we found, there was absolutely no rhyme or reason, meaning one day there was great business, the other day we lost money. So when we do stuff like that, it's not like we don't want to do it, but it gets, you don't have any historical data. And, you know, sometimes that doesn't matter. It depends on the weather. You know, are people going to go out to the tiki bar? Are they going to the pool? Do we open it? Do we not open it? Do we open inside? But if we say we're going to be open, we have to follow, and I truly understand it. We have to follow what we said. So I'm like, look, we said we're going to be open. If it's freezing outside, we're open inside then, because we have to follow through with what we said. But it gets, now we'll have some historical data. So I talked to Therese about it as well, and Bernard, and you know, when you do some special stuff like that, at least you can go year to year and look at historical data and determine, you know, where we should be at it. And, you know, so, sorry, but that's
helpful. Thank you.
there's some of that, yeah.
Okay.
So, if I'm not looking at this right, but it looks to me like salaries, wages were much higher in October than in November, so it certainly wasn't the holiday trend. Because the year-to-date figure is over half.
Thanksgiving.
No, but I'm saying,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
but it's not. If you look at the numbers, salaries and wages for November were only 53. Year-to-date, so
Yeah.
October was more expensive
Yes.
than November,
Yes.
so it's not the holiday
It was
trend.
57,000.
I was wondering if you had more people training in October. I don't know, but when Bernard digs into this, this is gonna be really important with you to understand
And also lower
what's
revenue.
going on. But I don't think you can attribute it to the holiday, was my comment.
Not all.
And also we had
Okay.
lower revenue in October. So that
But
will
this is
affect
just wages,
But it
yeah.
should be lower wages.
That's revenue,
It should be lower wages.
percentage of revenue.
Yeah, the whole, yeah.
And just one other thing I mentioned before to Rick, if we can get these before meetings, so we can actually sit and analyze it, and so we could, if we have questions,
West in here.
as opposed to Cheryl being swift enough to pick it up.
Okay.
Other summer.
It'd be nice to have,
in advance.
You
It's
just send it to
helpful.
Belinda.
Yeah.
Send your advice to Belinda so she can have it.
Yeah,
Send it
great.
all to us.
If you want it in the agenda packet, though, it has to be at least a week before.
And I also added the coverage report
Right. Thank you for that.
to the back of it.
I know.
Bigger tiki bars will be. Got it, proceed.
know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say la, 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 la.
Hopefully,
Before the meeting, Jim took on the record, it needs to be a whole week before you're gonna be able to do that.
we have that.
Or he sent it to us,
Yeah.
you know, on Friday or something.
Yeah.
whatever.
Either way.
And like, we're gonna have, in 2 weeks, are we gonna have December's in the next by the next meeting?
Was that actually the 27th?
27th,
Yeah.
Yeah, December.
So we have December, okay, cool.
Because the 18th.
So then we'll be on that rotation.
Good, yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
perfect.
But what I'm worried about, just to, if it's not ready to get in the package, can Ricardo send it like Thursday?
Sure.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Monday,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because the package is a deadline.
If it's in the ready
Even
for
if
the board.
it's even if it's Saturday, just so we have an advance,
Yeah.
just to scan it.
Look at
have an-
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good juncture for me to just pipe up and say, I think it's important that we, as a board, we try to be aware that staff is, and I'm looking at Ricardo, I'm saying this, you know, tasked with a lot of things to do. So I think we need to be mindful. I think the Reserves Committee is asking for some reporting on, I was looking at the minutes. So I think we just need to be mindful of what it is we're asking for and the purpose of it, because there's a lot of requests being made of staff.
Not asking for anything that this board hasn't talked about,
Okay,
like P and Ls for private events.
right,
Remember, we wanted.
yeah, yeah, okay.
That's the biggest thing we're missing.
Yeah, so one comment on that, because I did have a chat with Ginger and people, including Julia Ricardo, is it, you know, if it's every single private event, it may be a bit of a challenge, because they can be hybrid. You know, there can be a private event where there may be 50% of a staff person, et cetera, but it's being used for the event, or 1.5 people. So it may be somewhat difficult to do, yeah, so, all right.
It's really not.
Can I,
And that's the only part that takes, you know,
Takes some time.
the labor
Some time.
location.
Sure.
so I'd like to
But I
piggyback
just
on your
think it's
comments,
reasonable.
Jill,
Give me your
about
best.
asks. You know, we try really hard to be cognizant of your time. And I think as a board, we need to show that example. So, and Rich, I'm not picking on you, but I'm gonna use you as the example, like this recaptcha thing. We had already had that covered in the tennis, on the tennis side and on the fitness side. So, I would like to say if we could just pause on the, like, questions back that maybe I can answer. And I don't know how we do that.
Yeah,
And
that's the problem, I would have.
I know, and I don't know how we communicate that, because our inability to communicate puts a lot of burden on other staff members.
I mean, I think,
And, go ahead,
I don't mean to interrupt,
no, that's fine.
but I
Sorry.
think it becomes an issue of which you guys do well, where you're the liaison for whatever, so you're
Yes.
the tennis person. So, you know, if you stay in your lane with all tennis type issues, and if Rich, I'll pick on you again, if you have a tennis question, you can just, you know, bring it up at the meeting rather than asking the tennis committee to do something, because that's more Cynthia's.
Or could he reach out to Mark, who's the chairman, or like Nancy on fitness and pool, and say, are you addressing this?
You
Is that
can if you
doable?
like, but do you
I
want?
have no problem with that.
And I wasn't sure if I could do that, because I know we're not supposed to talk to, like, through an intermediary per se, so.
Right, you could speak to others, but you know, I don't necessarily recommend that, because then
Okay.
you've got your committee getting different, you know,
Okay.
direction,
Well, I
whereas.
wasn't
I'm just
direction,
trying to
was
think
just-
how
I understand, I don't even know what happened, I'm just.
So I have a possibility, maybe since we're meeting every 2 weeks now, and we generally have a workshop before every meeting, maybe if someone has a question regarding something came through, like if something comes through for me and it's about ponds, I specifically said to those people, I will talk to Ken.
Right.
And we will
Like a
decide at the
workshop.
next meeting.
Right.
Who is taking point on this.
That's sort of what I'm
So-
saying is right, stay in,
And so I'm
stay in your
thinking, yeah, I'm not talking to anybody else during this except somebody issuing the question.
Right,
And then when I come back here, I'll say to Ken, or if it's a tennis issue, I will say to you, are you taking care of this tennis
Right.
issue like somebody has a court that they own?
Before the next workshop, if somebody goes to you with a question about ponds,
Say call
why
Ken.
don't you go back to that person and say, hey, why don't you send this to Ken?
I
And
did,
he-
that's what I
Yeah.
said,
And
yeah, yeah.
And that's
So
what I
Then I
do
can
too.
have the answer before.
That's
the
exactly
person
what I
asks.
did and what I said, but then I would follow up at this committee is what I'm pointing out. Rather than going to somebody else to have something done, I came back to this committee to say, Ken, did you get that or you point? So I think we're saying the same
I
thing.
think
We
we're
all
saying the
are
same thing,
saying
and
the
I guess
same
my
thing.
goal here, and I apologize for the sidebar, but I think the goal is to allow the financials, is I see that the to-go for November was actually 0. And on a year-to-date basis, it was 47. Are we not capturing that area correctly?
On the covers,
Under the covers, because.
on the covers, yeah, we did have an issue with the setup on the back end of
Okay.
Johnson Core.
Okay,
And we figured that out because Thanksgiving was not shown correctly, and Ken pointed out.
yes.
And but now that has been fixed.
Okay, so,
but
and not that we need
we
to do a
cannot go back
reclassification,
and-
but it was someplace in the other numbers. The
What was that?
revenue was reported someplace in one of the other numbers.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, it just goes to main item.
okay, thank you.
I've got one question. Not that I want to get rid of breakfast, but I see total revenue is $3,800. So if we're figuring cost of food is half, what, so what, profit's $1,900, plus we have labor for 4 weeks. Can we just get a labor number of what breakfast costs us for a month or two, so we can get an understanding of of how much we're making and we're losing on breakfast board? We understand it. I'm not saying we get rid of breakfast.
We
but-
talking Sunday?
It's the only-
Yeah, so it's only breakfast, yeah.
It's only reference.
No, there's some, actually, if lunch is served before noon, it shows up as breakfast.
Yeah.
On a weekday.
Okay, so that
So
would
we just combine them with lunch.
So that would make the number even, so that means breakfast would be even worse, but I'm just curious on Sunday.
Yeah,
There's not many, but.
So just Sunday breakfast, if we could just figure out what the labor number is on Sunday for breakfast, because then obviously we have a lot of other, utilities and get the club open and all those other things on top of it. And then clean up and move, rearranging and staffing for, but I'd just like to know, so if we're losing $4,000 a month on breakfast, we should know it. I'm just,
There's only one day, yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is only one day represented
Yeah, so,
here
yeah.
versus,
We're still
you know,
gonna have more revenue.
5 days a
It's
week
one
and
day.
everything else.
Yeah.
So it's always gonna be skewed to the low end.
no, that's
Yeah.
it, but
But I would wait till we're in season 2. I think that's a great question, but I would wait, till we
Well,
have
we should-
financials.
But we
for
should
the
have
season.
both. We should know it off-season and in season. I mean,
Yeah.
then.
To
Well,
see a
that's-
trend for
Remember,
the
that's
season.
why we went to off-season, not doing the buffet, because we were losing our shorts.
Right, exactly.
So
So now that we.
this was actually supposed to at least break even, but
Yeah,
I
I'd like to
Yes,
see it.
we-
season off-season.
Just as we go down that road, then we should do it for everything. Because then, well, and I'm just hear me, like,
I don't wanna- I
if
don't wanna
for
create
some
extra
reason
work.
Wednesday lunch is blank, do you analyze that as well? So it's not like it's, I'm not trying to say
Dinner
we
on
want
Friday.
extra
Lunches
work.
are way worse.
I agree.
Why
Well-
we do lunch is beyond me, except at the tiki bar.
Agree.
I don't know why we do that.
I agree 1,000%.
Why we do lunch in
But-
here
Do
at
do
all?
we need
It
kitchen
should
staff?
just be tiki bar.
Do we need kitchen staff here? Do we need
Oh,
kitchen
you're
staff
here.
on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to start prepping stuff for the here anyway? So I don't know.
Operational
Yeah.
question.
That's an operational question. I mean, if the staff is here, they can.
But that will be part of the costing.
Can you figure out how we can do that? Because I don't
It'd be
think.
nice to see a full report
Same-
when
same
you're
as the
ready.
next.
Yeah.
Supervisors, we're at the 2-hour mark,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a very long agenda.
I do have one more thing though. Jill, we have to have recorded in the minutes
Yes.
that the change
Yes.
of chair
Mhm.
for the signature of the credit cards.
Credit card, yeah.
Yes, I
Okay.
just have to have that in the minutes.
So we
turn it
need to add an agenda item. Did you email
It was
those?
in, it's in.
Why
the-
do you need it,
It's
in
in
the
the
back.
minutes, we have a resolution.
The bank requested that to show the minutes, a record of the minutes, showing that the new chair, it's the new signature.
It should be in the minutes, but we also have a resolution that's adopted by the district that we
Okay.
can provide you with as well.
If you could
Oh,
provide
I
that,
thought you needed specifically for the credit cards. I'm sorry.
that's, yeah, that's
It
it.
is in the minute.
Yes.
Maybe you
it is.
haven't seen it.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah, I misunderstood what the request was then. Sorry.
thank you.
Keith, do you have anything to report?
Sorry, Cindy, I had to have you move. You
Yeah,
look,
no, it's
you
fine.
looked
I
like
better
you
know.
were coming out of the cloud and you were an angel. Coming out of there, I was like, okay, we know she's an angel, but let's. Not a whole lot, just, the 3 palm trees, finally got bids in on those. But, cheap enough that, or inexpensive enough that Belinda can go sign off on those. We'll have those removed here probably sometime this week or, the following week. Kenan and I and the rest of the staff, the volunteers, we're moving forward with the card implementation and the RFID thing. And I guess that's gonna be brought up and talked about a little bit later, or you already did. But that's going forward and going really relatively smoothly, and not a whole lot of hiccups with residents. I mean, you could send out all the correspondence in the world and they're still probably not gonna read a lot of it and want us to take care of it for them, which we can and do. And we're trying to accommodate everybody. So, but it's, seems to be going along well. But other than that, if you're wanting to find out, another fence, going down Laurel Road and by the golf court there, I can try to reach out to some vendors to come out and give us another estimate. Because that one you have, I'm afraid is.
It's 9 months old.
Yeah. So, and understand we gotta do a whole lot of bulldozing and redoing everything once we do that, but, at least we'll know. And and when they can come out, because they are very busy, but I can get it on the radar anyway.
Do we need to do that?
I kind of don't even want to do it
I
because
agree with you.
then we have to redo the landscape design that we're
Fantastic.
asking for because it's a whole deal. It's
Right.
not just a refresh, it's a,
Yeah, okay, fantastic, great.
you know what, and if we can find something that's thick enough to prevent people walking through, then I think we go ask for the fence and then we redo the west side of the Laurel Road.
Okay.
If that's okay with you guys, I would
Well,
like
the
to-
only thing I was thinking, I'm throwing it out there as an idea, is, do we wanna have a possible estimate on a fence for like the wraparound corner off of Laurel onto Veneto?
That was actually the proposal we
And
had.
that
was it wrapped?
ornamental one.
Yeah.
The ornamental one.
It wrapped around, so we kind of have a ballpark, we could probably add 20% and be
Okay,
close.
okay, all right, good.
Yeah, because.
That would
that's
look
the problem.
good.
It would look
It would
good.
look good if we
It would
did it on
look
both
very
sides, yeah.
It just is.
Okay, so no on that, because we could up it by the 20%, we don't wanna move on.
I don't know that we need another, because we're not gonna like it and we're gonna want another one anyway, because I know how this works.
All right,
But, the other thing is it will allow us, when we look at the landscape designs, to say, if you had to redo, luckily that's a smaller area,
Mhm.
so if they have to redo that whole landscape area, they
Yeah.
might be able to give us a better design bid on that.
okay,
Anyway,
okay,
maybe we can see what the design bids come in at, and then we'll know who we're working with.
okay. Cool.
Anything on me?
So, I don't know about the others, I keep getting emails about the light poles and these, and I know you guys are calling FPL every week, but do we have to have those
Laying there?
laying there looking like?
They're live wires.
Yeah.
And, having myself or Dan go over and cut them, and they belong to FP&L. And so, I guess we
Can we
could
call them
get,
every day then? Because it
Well,
looks horrible.
I talked to, the city manager. And he has an FP&L guy right there in his office. I said, well, let me talk to him. Please have him call me. And he did.
Okay.
And the guy called and I said, hey, I got 6 of these things laying down. Oh, well, we can get out there when we're there. I said, okay, but I've got that many standing that aren't working.
Right.
So when there, he goes, that's probably even further down the road. I said, well, this isn't good. I've got poles laying on the ground, live wires, and I need something. He said, well, when you see the trucks. Now, we did have some trucks out here last week, and they fixed a couple of the ones standing, just a couple. And then they left. We asked, are you gonna pick any of these up on the ground? He said, basically no habla. And off they went. So, I hate to be the broken record like this, but it's, when I pull in here every day, that's,
Don't feel special having the same issue.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that after Ian, it took them 20 months. I think it was 20, because we were marking it to see how long it took. 20
it
months
looks
to come
terrible,
out.
but I don't know what other to do. And I'm not gonna, I don't feel comfortable enough to have Dan, and,
No, I'm not
so-
asking for that, I was just curious what the,
yeah,
because the top is broken, so at least if we didn't have to look at, you know what I'm saying, so, but I understand, so, maybe we just call them every day, or maybe.
Is this a squeaky wheel situation with the city? Could we have a group of volunteers?
Well,
Every day?
I'll call everybody.
I mean, I'll
walk
call
down the
every day,
street,
too.
Sid,
I mean-
Whatever,
Well,
I can call.
and I left a message with him last week,
Call the mayor?
to call me again.
We were, in another community, I don't mean to interrupt, but we were able to at least have them come out and make sure they weren't live anymore, because that's a liability.
Let me call it, I'll call it everybody, I don't want to do that, so I'll take care of that. See if we can, so I wanted to ask Keith then when, because we never resolved it after the last meeting, so when Belinda sends the meeting summary, for this meeting, then, as I drafted a little preamble that could go out to the community with Belinda's summary, then, maybe you and I can touch base.
Sure.
On getting that out.
Great.
I did have an email from a resident who said he'd asked about having a sidewalk that's, it is really, really dirty. It's the southwest side of
Montalena,
Martalago.
okay,
Yeah, we need to get to that if we could, because it's bad. It's in front of that wetland that's right there before the pumpkin colored house.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just the last quick question, I meant to look at the post orders and I didn't have a chance, maybe it's a question for both of you. Do our post orders request that, or say that we should request of vendors coming in to do work that they should not do solicitation while they're here? Because I had a resident say, somebody was in here doing work, knocked on my door and said, oh, I'm here doing roof work.
It was the roofers.
The
They were
roofers.
driving me
Yeah.
nuts.
So we might need to lean on them a little bit. I know that we need to give them a piece of paper, but they should be told not to solicit when they're here doing legitimate work.
right. And, I'll look at because every new vendor or a vendor that comes in is given a piece of paper, park with the flow of traffic, those type of things. All right, and we can put on there, no soliciting while you're on property.
Absolutely. no
Usually when they call me, that's when, and we've got solicitors running amok. We just call the police and let them come in and take care of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But,
This is somebody who the resident said he knows was in here doing work, and oh, by the way, when he was coming out to, trim his flowers or whatever. So,
and I understand that, when you're that guy making a roof and you got another guy coming out right beside you and say,
I get it.
but we can put it on the piece of paper that
Yeah,
comes in.
that'd be awesome, please. Thank you so
You bet.
much. Okay, appreciate it.
All right.
Does anybody need a break?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna take a 10-minute break at 11:46 and we're gonna go off for.
You know what?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats, we're about to go back on the record. Okay, and we are back on the record at 11:54 a.m. I do have a few things to report. We did complete consider the appeal. As Andy mentioned, with Great Heart, we were successful with this process wherein they did recommend that FEMA appeal. So we're hopeful that that'll be the case. It is progress. I did meet with the new program delivery manager for Hurricane Milton. He is based here in Sarasota, so I'm optimistic. According to him, there's a new office that has been opened in Sarasota to service the Florida area to try to prevent the constant changes of the program delivery managers. So far, so good. We reviewed the damage inventory and the process of the damage inventory. I started preparing the damage inventory. I ran into a few bumps because I didn't have all the detail that I needed on the LMP invoices. I did reach out to both Bill and Chris asking for documentation that was needed, including all the GPS coordinates, pictures, and detail that needs to be on the invoices, because there wasn't any detail, there was just labor costs. So locations weren't part of that. I received the revised invoices on Friday, and a total of 13 invoices revised. Bill did send me a list of GPS coordinates, summary of work, so I've created a separate spreadsheet for the damage inventory to include all the GPS location per invoice per location. So I'm getting ready to finish the damage inventory so that I can submit it to FEMA. The issue with the bridge that Rick previously reported on, that's part of that, so I'll make sure to include it as well. But now that I have his cost estimate, it'll be easier to include. Other than that, that's where we are right now. Any questions for me? I did want to talk about the agenda format because, as you could see, I wanted to talk about workshop agenda versus meeting agenda. Obviously, workshop would be items that you were going to discuss but not take action on. The regular meeting agenda would be items you intend on taking action on. You can always add an agenda item at the meeting, but you do have to open it up for public comment. But I think this will kind of streamline your timeline as it relates to your meeting, so you're not falling into the 4 or 5 hour mark. So, for example, we have all sorts of items mixed in right now. I don't know whether you covered them in your agenda or not during the workshop, but if you let us know that you intend this to be a workshop item, we can create a separate workshop agenda so you cover your items in your workshop.
Oh,
This way, your agenda items are strictly items you're gonna be taking action on, and you don't have to hold the discussion all over again.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I think going forward, if you have an item that is specific to the workshop, let us know. And then I'm gonna have Amber create a separate workshop agenda for just those items, and they won't be on the regular meeting agenda unless you plan on taking action.
Excellent.
Okay?
That's good to know.
So I already sent Amber a notification. She's gonna go ahead and advertise the Sunshine Law presentation, and you'll send out the materials to us in advance so that we can record it. Okay. Any other questions for me? Advisory committee liaisons, I'm not sure if there's anything to report.
I do. I've got just a couple of items. Okay, so the first thing and most important thing is, as the POA liaison, I went to the POA meeting, and Bob Knight and John Puro have filled the 2 vacancies for the 2 ladies that had resigned on the board. So congratulations to both Bob Knight and John DePiro. There was a lot of stuff going on, but there was, between the residents meeting and the POA meeting itself, there was a lot of conversation about Laurel Road. And I think we've addressed that issue, so I'm not gonna belabor that. There's a lot of concerns. The gentleman spoke about that earlier. So there was also an interesting question about, what the folks at the gatehouse are doing on their drive-arounds. What actions are they taking during their drive-arounds? And I'm just bringing up some of the bullet points for our conversation. Let's see, what else is there? There was also conversation about the speeding and the stop signs and the lack of enforcement and things like that. And so those are the highlights. And then Bob Knight, like he mentioned earlier, is the POA liaison to the CDD. So that's the POA. I could go innocent pool, but I don't think I want to belabor it at this point because we want to keep the meeting moving. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the only comments I wanted to make. Thank you.
And you kindly sat in for me on, social and dining.
I
So
did.
just to say thank you, and I think, I think the committee's doing a lot of great work, helping with events and marketing and resident communication, so thank you for
No problem, I'm glad to
sitting
help.
in on
Yep, anytime anyone needs somebody to sit in on a meeting, if I'm available, I'll be happy to do it. Let's just not make it a habit. Okay, all right.
Facilities, we have a bunch of things going on. I'll try to go through them quickly. Somebody brought up the notion of needing more awnings. Supposedly, we heard this now months and months later, that over the summer, the bartender was claiming the table that discussion until we have a better understanding. It starts to get expensive. So we thought we'd put that off until we had more information. Am I right, Julie?
Yep.
Okay. The other thing we have obviously was a parking lot, which we kind of discussed, so we're working forward on that. And the last one is a locker room renovation, and it was brought up at the meeting that, and especially what Julie just said, we're not losing the storage from above. And the people at the facilities started thinking about, well, if we start losing storage, we want to create more storage. And one of the things that we also then possibly want to tie into on the LaSalle side is, one easy way to make LaSalle larger is to take part of the storage closet. That's the locker rooms becomes all the more necessary. So we're trying to look at that, and we would really just like to have approval from the board to go ahead and get an architect, do some quick rendering of what the LaSalle might look like if we didn't do any exterior wall work. If we just we felt that there's possible reconfiguration of the bathrooms over here to extend the bar, get rid of the closets over here, extend the bar, extend LaSalle, and then utilize what we were talking about for storage and the locker room renovations further down to try to get these projects tied in unit, opposed to just doing the locker rooms and not planning on storage, and then coming back a year or two later and finding out, well, LaSalle, we can't take out that closet because we now haven't created the storage that we might possibly need. So I just want to get an idea of, a couple $1,000 agreement. I know we came up with before the board, the previous board, $2,000 to have them just look at that, and I would like to request that again.
Where are we with the LaSalle?
So focus groups, the last of them is on February 4. We've already started the form of final report. We have a couple more things we need to do, a few more expert people we have to talk to, but the goal of the committee is to have the final report with at least 4, counting doing nothing, potential scenarios for LaSalle. So like do nothing and then, small, medium, and all singing, all dancing. Obviously, it won't have numbers attached to it, but we've got really good feedback from people. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why we're doing painting. So, but I think we'll be in a position to give to the board by the end of February some recommendations. And one of them clearly would be, it seems to me, I don't want to speak for, everybody, but folks feel that we need a lot more space in there. So we can make the recommendation, that we take some of that space. And to be fair, I'm the one who said to Julie, we need to get everything out of that upstairs area, attic area. We need to determine how much stuff there is up there that actually has to be stored. But to me, it's all part and parcel of, I agree with Rich, of sort of an overall, what are the possibilities? How could we, is it a possibility to take the wall out? And if it's not, then it's not, and we should deal with it. But
I don't know, it just seems before we go spend a couple of $1,000 even, we ought to have a holistic thought process around this.
But you're not gonna know what the process is until you know what you can do. So even if Jill comes with 4 options, we don't know if any of those options are viable until we know until the architect tells us what we can do. So I'm just trying to marry up all these
Yeah, I
things.
appreciate that, but I don't know what the architect would, what do you mean by what we can do?
Well, in other words, are there so many mechanicals in that wall, for example, that it doesn't make sense? I mean, I've been told by people who understand this stuff, it's a truss building, so in theory, a lot of the walls aren't necessary because of the construction of the building.
And then that will.
But the question is, are there so many mechanicals there that it would cost us, an exorbitant amount of money to remove that wall, then maybe it doesn't make sense, or it's part of the
You talked
decision
about-
making.
This wall behind this storage room?
Yes, that corner, if you will.
And the curved archways,
And the old area.
and
So,
possibly into the bathroom, the men's bathroom, move everything forward, just to get an idea of what things can be done and possible costs from an architect's perspective, as these are potential construction costs. So when Jill comes back with her things, the first thing we're gonna do is, what can we do and what's it gonna cost? So at least we have an option of knowing it. And realistically, if we're going to do anything in La Sala, the odds are it's gonna have to get bigger. And the cheapest option of making it bigger is getting rid of interior walls if they're not load bearing, as opposed to start expanding outward, where you're knocking out, load bearing structural walls for the building.
he's gonna know pretty quickly if
So-
it makes sense or
So
not.
nothing to do with the locker room side?
Well, just to understand if we can utilize that storage in that room, we then need to create storage elsewhere, so then that impacts the conversation of, do we need storage when we do the locker rooms? Because if we can't utilize that area and that has to remain storage, it might be enough. But if we can utilize that space for La Sala, we then need to create storage elsewhere, and as long as we're doing the locker renovation, let's create that storage, because we have that we've got that plan already drawn up. So let's rework some office space, make some more office space, and make it until we know what the possibilities of La Sala are gonna be. And I just wanna make sure we're not spending money for locker rooms doing it, and then finding out, oh, we should have added more office space, we should have added more storage, we didn't do this.
I got it.
It's all a domino.
Well, we had a contract with Craig.
Switch, right, yeah, the cribs, yeah.
Well, did that ever get completed? Because I know Bob Raffato was working.
We
Yeah,
have completed work.
We've
for that,
completed the work,
right?
he's never sent an invoice.
Do we
Yeah,
get a
I,
signed contract?
we did not. I talked to
Okay.
Bob and I said, where did it end up? And he said, well, I emailed him and I didn't hear back. And I was like, okay.
All right, because I'm thinking if it's gonna do more work, we would do an
Right.
addendum to that contract,
Right.
but we need to wrap up
Yes.
that contract.
Fair point.
But I think the $2,000 that was just mentioned at the previous board a couple of months ago, we can probably speak, we haven't spoken to him, but I'm sure if we tell him this week, up to $2,000, this is what we're looking to do, give us a quick overview of some possibilities and let us know. I'm sure we can get away with something like that.
So are you just gonna say, we want bigger? What are our options? Or are you gonna say, what can we do with this wall?
Well, it's basic, it's big, we want bigger and it's bigger and one of our options. I mean, I kind of drafted something up, because I have some architectural background.
Yeah,
But I'm not, but
That's
I
the
don't,
trouble we
I-
always get in, we're
no,
not specific.
but I don't,
I think the specificity is particular to that, to that particular area relative to La Sala. I
Yeah,
think
no.
we need to start there, and the question is it so cost prohibitive to remove this wall that it doesn't make sense, and it's specific to that?
well, yeah, but that, well,
Yes,
in the
it
back.
doesn't touch I guess, I get it down the road, it does touch other things, but specifically the
No.
$2,000 we're talking
No,
about.
the $2,000, I'm looking for just to discuss the storage, the storage closet, and then possibly can the bathrooms be reworked to create additional work? And as an architect, you should be able to put an approximate ballpark number of what those things would cost.
If we were working the bathroom, I can tell you what it costs.
Look, rather than piecemeal, we started piecemeal with the locker rooms.
Right.
Now we're looking at another piecemeal.
Well,
Why don't we look at the whole section from La Sala down through the locker room?
because it doesn't go,
Maybe-
it doesn't.
Can I finish, please? Maybe we look at doing away with the bathrooms here and incorporating them into the locker room, and you've got one long space to deal with, rather, to have available to do something with, rather than we're looking at this, we're looking at this, what about that? You know what I'm saying? Let's look at a holistic section of the building.
That makes more sense to me because then when I looked at the drawings of what the locker rooms could look like, just for pool use, I don't like it. If you're gonna take those bathrooms out in the front and make this really a restroom for everybody, then I'm okay with redoing the finishes and making it look really pretty, because now you're talking about a lot more different kind of usage. And then I agree with Ken that look at holistically that whole area. What
Then there's a lot more space, you could do something.
Right,
Well,
right.
yeah, so
Storage is clearly an issue, there's no question.
it is, and I think there's some, we can talk about it, hopefully if we have 2 minutes in the supervisor remarks, some things we can do in the short term. But, so do we have a direction here then in terms
And
of
if,
find out what that would be?
I mean,
to-
I mean, I'm sure, I have no problem going back to the committee and the architect to discuss that, but we would need money to have the architect come in and start looking at those things and saying, here's a rough idea of what we could do here, here's a rough idea of what we could do there, to make those decisions. It's not I don't think the committee's capable of doing that. We need the architect to do
Sure.
that, so it would probably be like another $5,000 or possibly more.
Do we want to wait till we find out what the LaSalle group is going to recommend? Because now there may be some other ideas to incorporate. I'm just,
look,
one thing we
it's a-
get
it's a-
criticized of is doing, you know,
Right,
And
No,
redoing,
look,
and
it-
redoing.
and redoing.
Look, it's a fair point. I mean, we're very close to being done. As I said, we've already got a skeleton of what the report would look like, so we should be able to.
Past the offices. Right, that whole renovation. And that's fine, I think it's great. But then if we don't have the reserve,